Today, I'm going to tell you about something incredibly powerful that can transform the way you learn English forever: reading. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Reading is so boring. But let me show you why reading is not only exciting, but also the secret tool that will help you become truly fluent in English. Imagine you want to speak English confidently, like a natural. You want to be able to have conversations without thinking too hard, to understand movies without subtitles, and to express yourself in a way that feels right. Reading is one of the most effective ways to make this happen. It's not just looking at words on a page. It's like stepping into a magic world where you pick up new words, understand grammar, and learn how to talk like native speakers do. Reading is like your own personal English teacher that you can take anywhere. Every time you open a book, a story, an article, you're having a little lesson without even realizing it. The words you see, the sentences you read, and the ideas you understand are all helping you build a powerful English vocabulary and the confidence to speak without hesitation. Let's say you're reading a story about a girl who's visiting a new country. As you follow her journey, you're learning all sorts of English words, how to talk about places, how to describe feelings, how to explain things that are happening. And here's the magical part: you're learning without even trying. It's fun, interesting, and it feels natural, like watching a movie in your head. One amazing thing about reading is that it makes you familiar with how English sentences are put together. When you read, you're not memorizing grammar rules, you're seeing grammar in action. For example, when you read sentences like, "He was running quickly," or "She decided to go to the park," your brain starts to understand how English works. You don't have to study grammar rules because you see them used correctly over and over again. And here's the big secret. The more you read, the less you have to think when you speak. Your brain starts to remember the patterns and phrases you see in stories. And when it's time to talk, the right words come out naturally, almost like magic. Reading gives you a huge vocabulary. Every time you read, you're finding new words to add to your collection. Think of it like collecting special tools that you can use whenever you need them. If you read a story about a jungle, you might learn words like wild, explore, adventure, or mystery. These aren't just boring words in a textbook. They're words with meaning, words that help you paint a picture in your mind. And guess what? When you go to talk about something exciting or share a story of your own, these words come back to you. You're not just saying, "It was fun." Now, you can say, "It was an amazing adventure." Doesn't that sound better? Reading fills your mind with all these words and phrases that make you sound more like a native speaker. Reading helps you think in English, not translate. A big challenge when learning English is thinking in your native language and then translating it into English. But reading changes this. When you read often, you start to think in English automatically. Imagine this. You're reading a simple story about a boy who loves playing soccer. You get so absorbed in the story that you're not thinking about each word. You're just following the story, picturing it in your mind. Slowly, without even realizing it, you stop translating, and English starts to feel more natural. You're training your brain to understand and use English without needing to think in another language first. This is one of the most powerful ways to sound fluent and confident when you speak. Reading makes you a better listener. You might wonder, how can reading help me with listening? Well, when you read, you get used to English words and sentence structures. So when someone speaks to you, your brain is quicker to recognize and understand what they're saying. Imagine listening to a song you've never heard before. The first time, it might sound unclear, but after a few times, you understand every word, every beat. Reading does the same for your listening skills. The more you read, the easier it is to understand English when you hear it spoken by others. Whether it's a friend, a movie, or a podcast, your ears become more trained to hear and understand English, just like your eyes learn to recognize words on the page. Think about this. When you know something well, you feel confident, right? The more you read, the more you know. You learn new words, you understand English better, and you feel more prepared to join conversations. Imagine reading a story about someone who has an interesting job, like a chef in a fancy restaurant. Next time you talk to someone about food, you can say, "I read about this amazing chef who cooks the best food." Suddenly, you have something interesting to share, and that makes you feel good. You're not just repeating what you've learned in class, you're sharing something unique that you picked up on your own. How much should you read? You don't need to read for hours and hours. Just 10-15 minutes a day can make a huge difference. Find a time that works best for you. Maybe in the morning, during lunch, or before bed. Start small and be consistent. Reading just a little bit every day helps you build a strong habit, and over time, you'll see your English improving without even noticing it. Think of reading as a journey. You can visit a new place, understand different cultures, and meet all kinds of characters, all through the pages of a book. It's like traveling, but without a plane ticket. And as you travel, you pick up new ways of speaking, describing, and expressing yourself. Imagine making your favorite dish. Each ingredient you add makes it tastier. Reading is like that. Every new word, every phrase, every sentence you read is an ingredient that makes your English richer and more flavorful. So, when you're ready to speak, you're not just using simple, plain words. You're using words that bring your ideas to life. When you read, especially stories and dialogues, you're learning the kind of English that people actually use in real life. In a textbook, you might learn, "Hello, how are you?" But in a story, you might see people say, "Hey, what's up?" or "How's it going?" These are the real phrases people use every day, and by reading you get comfortable with them. So when you're speaking, you don't sound like you're reading from a textbook, you sound natural, like a native speaker. So, here's the ultimate takeaway. Reading isn't just a tool, it's a gateway. It's not boring or a chore. It's a journey that leads you to a world full of new words, new cultures, new ideas, and a deeper connection with English. Each time you read, you're putting yourself one step closer to fluency, one sentence closer to confidence, and one book closer to being the English speaker you've always wanted to be. Reading brings grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, and fluency all together in a way that feels natural and fun. So pick up that book, scroll through that article, dive into that story, and let reading take you further than you ever imagined.